talking with Leon Collier, U.S. Army veteran, and we're going to record his story for posterity as part of the VBC History Project. So, Leon, how did you decide to go into the United States Army?
Well, I was in my junior year in high school, and they had a U.S. Army post in the high school, and it was part of our career counseling services. And although the Vietnam War was something that really was not supported by the Americans, I didn't have anything idea what I was going to do. But many of my friends were basically leaving the country, going to Canada because they didn't want to go into the Army. And the reason why I was not really sure is because most of my friends were saying, Leon, if you even get drafted, you will not go into the Army because you're an only child, and they don't really draft the only child of the family. So that gave me some kind of reassurance I would not be drafted. But when I got my diploma, I was graduated on 1 week, and the next week I was drafted into the military. And that's how I got initially started into the Army. I got drafted 1 week after I went into the military. And actually I tried to do my best to get out by saying to each person I talked to in the drafting station, I'm the only child, and I shouldn't be here. And they kept on saying, yes, we understand. Go to the next door, next thing I was in this massive room, and all these guys with one hand up swearing to the Constitution, and I was in.
And how old were you when you were drafted?
I was 17, almost reaching 18, because my birthday is in December, and I was in August. So I was still 17, actually.
Wow. So where did you grow up, and did you have any other family members that had been in the service?
Not to my knowledge. I had a very difficult childhood, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, saying it was my entire life history. I was born in New York, and my mother, she got ill when I was a baby, and she was forced to go back to South Carolina with her family. And what I didn't know at that time, and I didn't know this until actually I got out of the military. She was a minister's daughter, and this minister had, I think right now, about 12 kids. So when she had me, she was not married, so she became a curse to the family. And therefore, I was taken from her, and I was sent to live with an aunt in North Carolina. And I would say from the age of 3 until close to 6 years old were the best days of my life. And that played a major part because during that time, my family was very religious, so I went to church every Sunday, and my aunt who was there, she also taught scriptures, and she was very well educated. She had traveled a lot, so she really took a good interest in me. And I guess in my mind, I thought she was my mother, but I didn't know it until, like I say, 35 years later. But at one point in that relationship, she said to me, I'm no longer going to go to church because I feel a little sick. So that meant I had to stay home with her on Sundays and just play in the backyard. that was fine with me. Which meant only one thing. I really didn't get a chance to socialize with any of the kids of my age at church anymore, and I was never able to talk to any of my family members because not knowing, but I was a curse to the family, so that's why I couldn't see none of them. But I learned a great deal in the sense that uh, my only enjoyment was to play in the backyard, and I used to have a broomstick. I used to hit rocks and stuff like that. And one day, uh, I found this pink rubber doll, and I started using that in terms of trying to play stickball or baseball. And every time I got really mad, I'd beat that doll up. And then one day I stomped on that doll, and it would deflate. And when it deflated, it made a sound that really caught my attention. So I would always make it deflate and stare at it. And that went on for a couple of Sundays. And then one particular Sunday when I was just beating that doll up and it was deflating, the neighbor's next door neighbor had a rooster, a big rooster. He had around his neck was black, and he had like red on his body. He decided to come over into my yard. And my idea, I got a stick here, I'm going to make him get out of my yard. And that rooster actually fought me. We actually fought. And the first time we encountered, he got the best of me. I ran in the house, and my aunt said, don't be afraid of him. It's only a rooster. So I wouldn't go back out that Sunday, but the next Sunday I'd go out there, and he was waiting for me. And we fought for a while, and each time that we fought, I would think of a strategy how to beat this rooster. It took me about a month, and then one day, my aunt put my playtime and my fighting time between me and the rooster short, and she said, I want you to come in and eat breakfast because I want to sit and talk to you. And after we finished breakfast, she said, I gotta lay down. I'm gonna lay down. And she lay down and she said, I taught you a lot. I watched you in the backyard. It's time for you to grow up. And she died. At that point in time, I just saw her spirit go away from, away. And my whole thinking process, I said, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to kill that rooster now, because I had the whole thing planned out. And I went outside. It was like that rooster never existed. He just disappeared. So then when the family members came back from church and they found out basically that she had died, their initial response was to get me away from that situation. But I understood a lot about life at that point in time, which I didn't understand, but I had grasped between our discussions with my aunt and the church, and then believe in God and something like that. So I knew what had happened, but I was immediately sent further down south to my uncle. And that's what I rephrase in my book, Dropping into Hell, because he was a poor sharecropper in the South. And in the South at that time for Black people, it was really hard. But even with his family, he had a large family, they treated me like I was less than human because I was a dental mouth they couldn't afford to feed. Life was very hard. We had to farm, pick cotton, all those things. The only difference between me and his sons was that his sons had got to the age where they was able to drive trucks for the person on the farm, where I had to do all the cotton picking and the collecting of eggs in a chicken house, feed the horses, and then go into their house and clean their houses and stuff like that. So that was really a very, and then plus I got a beating from all of my uncles and kids because they saw me as a burden and I was taking food from them. So then from the first grade through I think the eighth grade, I was down in the South doing all that. But then we came back to New York and I got into junior high school and then I went on to high school in New York. So all of that was happening at the early part of my life. And once I got into high school and was trying to really finish high school, actually, except for the beatings and stuff like that, the rest of that stuff I totally forgot about. I just forgot about it. My mind is blocked out. I forgot about it until I got into the service. So that's how I got into the service. When I was drafted, I was still initially trying to get everyone get the message across to everyone that I was the only child and I shouldn't be in the service, but that was a loser. And when I first went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for my basic, and once I observed that there were guys coming into the service who had been drafted who were really not healthy, had heart conditions, had all these medical issues, and they were still drafting those kind of individuals. I said to myself, if they can't stay out of the service, then I don't have a prayer. But there was a group of guys, about 8 of them from the South. I guess the best way to describe it, they were gun-ho. But the way I look at those guys, those guys, if they're going to go to Vietnam, they're going to come back, and I'm going to get with them. So I got with them, and we trained hard, and I really was able to really do really good in the training and stuff like that. Do my basic training, and a lot of the guys, they were still going to go with the special forces when they said it's going to come out of basic, and that gave me the idea. Okay, I'm going to realist and go into special forces because I really need that expertise and skills, and that's how I got into that area to train early on.
So what year was basic training?
1966.
Okay. And what was your specialty when you went to special forces?
Level BF. I was infantry. Master. I was in infantry. I had I majored in marksmanship, and I had a weapons specialties, rifles team.
Okay, and how long did you spend in special forces training before you got your first duty station?
It was around, I would say, 14 to 16 weeks, something like that. We went to, I had made some notes that I thought you were going to ask, but we went through a rigid training session, and we had a lot of training in terms of weapons training. We had techniques in evasion, escape, capture, mission control. I trained for like the mortar training, survivor training, jumping out of we had to do the Air Force jumping out, training for months of that. So we had a lot of, I think it was a lot of training, which I thought was really excellent training. It really prepared us for Vietnam. And also the training was done by guys who had went to Vietnam and had come back, and they was trained specifically to use different tactics than in the past, because to fight the Vietnam War was guerrilla warfare. It was not like the training I think they were doing prior to that. So we were trained specifically we went to Vietnam to fight the way they fought. So we had a lot of special training in those areas.
So you finish your special forces training. Did you get sent to another base, or did they send you directly to Vietnam?
That's a story within a story. What happened is that our division had been notified that we were on special alert, that we was going to all be going at one time to Vietnam by the end of the year, right after we had graduated from training. So right after November of '67, they told us that there was not going to be any chance for our family to come down to the graduations. We was going to be shipped out. Then a week before our graduations, they had a formation, and they called me out with about 10 other peoples. And I was the only one that had the MOS level in Bravo B. The rest of them was like doctors or whatever. They told us, they said, well, we want you to line up over here. And then they dismissed the other groups, and they came to me and the other guys, and they said, you guys are lucky. You're going to be able to spend the holidays with your families. So you'll be able to spend Christmas and New Year's. And they gave me my orders that I would be coming home, and then I would be going to my next post would be in San Francisco, California. So based upon that, I had said, I'm lucky I'm not going to be going to Vietnam. So I told my family I was not going to be going to Vietnam. I was going to be probably stationed in San Francisco at this base. And I had a uncle lived in San Francisco. He said, I know the base has come out here a couple of days before you're going to go to report and do that. I can show you around, and you have an idea how you can get around in San Francisco. So a week before report and do that, I went to San Francisco, and then when I went to the base to report in, I didn't realize it. The base was locked down. It was locked down. Everyone who was reporting it was going to go to Vietnam the next day. And we all sitting there, wait a minute, we all thought we was going to be stationed in the United States, but actually they kind of, in my words, they kind of tricked us, and we got the base. We had tickets lined up to get on the plane the next day to Vietnam. And I didn't know anyone. They were different division, different units. So we got on the plane, and our first stop was in Alaska. But we were really disappointed. We thought we had dodged a bullet, but unfortunately, we got it. At least for me, I got ahead of my division by a month.
Oh,
They
wow.
they went by ship, and I got on a plane. So, but I think what happened there was, and I compare this with a lot of my nightmares and dreams. I trained hard, and I was really prepared to fight when I got to Vietnam. And every child, man, boy, and woman in Vietnam was a enemy and would do anything to kill me. So when we landed in Vietnam, we walked down the ramp and we were this big open camp out in front of the airport. My training went into overdrive. I'm looking at it. I'm saying this doesn't seem like a secure place. If the enemy wants to really attack us, I don't see how they're gonna stop them. And I'm saying I need a gun or something, and I felt totally petrified. So we got into this camp, and they said to us, "Okay, we're going to process you in, and you're going to be going from here to Baghdad." That was a huge base, and and they said, "What we're going to do now is that we're going to put you on a trucker convoy, and we're going to be going through Saigon." And we want to make sure you all understand you can't get off the truck. So I'm saying, who the hell gonna get the truck? Here we're on a convoy and they got the things rolled up, the cameras rolled up, and everyone. I say, and it's only one Jeep in front with a machine gun and one in the back. They're gonna try to kill us. And I was really so. When we got closer to Saigon, the convoy really slowed down to almost a creep, and I am really pacified. And we turned, started to go through Saigon, and I heard all this rock and roll and all this blues. I used to party in New York. What the hell is going on? I see especially all these Navy guys with women on their arm, and I say, what the is a war? There's no war. All the nightclubs, and I'm saying, wait a minute, this the war? And that's why everyone started getting up, and I could see why they said, because they want to get the truck now, because it was like a party. So I was saying, all that training I went through for this, I took all that training, I threw it out the window, and then we went to Bearcat, and they processed us in, and Bearcat was like a whole new town. They had all these PXs, all these large screens on the basic, and we just bought beer and stuff. And I was saying, I'll stay here for 2 years just to go through all this. I had this push my training aside, and then they said, "Okay, Mr. Collier, your time to go out on patrol." And I asked the guy who went out on patrol the previous night. He said, "It's a cakewalk." And you believe one of the cartoons I did? They told us, I'm saying, "Don't go to sleep when you're on guard duty." I went to sleep. I slept all night. And then the guy woke me up the next morning and said, "Okay, let's go back into camp." So I had this kind of like said, this is gonna be an easier life. So then when my division got in and got settled in part of Macon Delta and up in that line, they sent me there, and I said, "I'm now back in hell." I knew I had got back in hell. This was really the war. So my first mission was we were in 2 teams of 12 squad. We went out on a mission, and the Viet Cong made a mistake, I think, which we capitalized on, is that they had been controlling this whole area of the Mekong Delta for years. So they had made the assumption that was something that we could not really deal with or could not really defend. So they gave that area patrol to the farmer. They were Viet Cong, but they were not really the trained professionals. So when we went out on our first mission, 2 things happened that was very, very interesting in my life. Is that we was out for about a half an hour, but got into a firefight with these farmers. And as soon as they started shooting, I jumped behind a large dike. And as soon as I jumped behind a large dike, I jumped up and threw my weapon away, because I had jumped into a better red inch, and they attack you in about 1,000. It's like, and they big, and I was just running around screaming, hollering, and yelling. And there was the enemy shooting at us, and I'm in front of the friendly fire. They're shooting us, and then someone pulled me down. So that's the first time I should have got killed there. I didn't get killed. But I learned from that mistake that, it doesn't matter what you're biting, you don't do that. And then we finally once the shooting stopped, we had to pursue them. And we chased them through the jungle for quite a while, and we lost them. And coming back, we were dressed in these camouflage fatigues. The Cobra helicopter from our side spotted us and thought we was BC. And so they started shooting at us. So my first duty was that I almost got killed by myself, and almost got killed by friendly fire because they didn't know who we were. So that was my first experience, my first Call of Duty, which I learned a lot from. And the first half of that was Charlie made a mistake because I think from that, not only myself, but our whole squad and also the company learned from those mistakes. And that's something I compare to when I left Vietnam because when we left Vietnam, the guys who replaced me, they were celebrating because I had just came from a combat field, and that's when I got my Silver Star, and that had pumped everyone up and everything else. But and they were going to go out the next day to on their first patrol. And as I was walking to the helicopter to go back to be processed out, they were going out the gate. It only takes you 5 seconds, and I knew it. 5 seconds, and they were all gone. Charlie didn't make that same mistake. He made sure the next time around that no one get the chance, and then they didn't live to see 5 minutes to the first mission. They were all gone. So that I compared, my first operation to theirs, and I was very lucky compared to theirs. They didn't have a chance. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm just listening to what you're talking about.
So I jumped ahead a lot, but that
No,
was
that's fine. That's a pretty harrowing experience.
yeah. They were pretty. I was lucky in my first operation, and the second operation is is what it made me lose my faith in God and stuff like that. But we went on a patrol, and certain parts of Vietnam, it's really it's the mud. Once the tide uh, goes back out into the ocean, the mud is set like quicksand. You're walking through that stuff. You have to tie your rope from one person to the next person so they wouldn't sink down. So we had almost the entire day going through this field and valley to get to the other side. It was like making sure we get through that mud before the tide came in. And when I got on the other side and I could see, I would say about you know maybe say 1,500 feet in front of me, this huge, nice, big tree trunk sitting there. I'm saying to myself that I'm gonna go sit on that trunk because I am exhausted. And apparently, uh, one of the guys behind me had the same idea. We was not really racing, but I guess we were racing. So he beat me there, and he turned to face me. When he sat down, a mortar blew him. Just like I saw that doll in my 5 years old, it sunk him. And that's when that image from 5 years old came back into my mind. And it from that image on, I was not deaf, did not scare me. I didn't freak out because it took me back to me beating up on that doll and it deflating. So, I say to God that He put that in my mind when I was 5 because He knew it was going to happen to me. And he helped me bury it until that one moment. So that was kind of the second time I had a mission that I really experienced. And at the same time, you experience you experience the idea that death has a strong smell that you never forget. And if you can't freak out, you got to just take it in slowly and understand its death. So, and you got to get used to it. And once you do that, in my opinion, you can survive. I mean, the chance of you surviving are much greater than if you just freak out or something like that. And the third time that we had a experience is that we were sent out on this a short-term reconnaissance mission, and we ran into, I would say, it had to be at least 300 Viet Cong, and they had boxed us in, and our only retreat was to cross a river behind us, and the tide was very high. So the the team leader who was carrying the M60 got hit. So someone had to carry him, and I had to carry the M60. So, and actually most of the troops in Vietnam, you're carrying on your back around 80 pounds of ammunition anyway, so you're really carrying a lot on you. So we had to throw a rope across the river so I would be able to carry this M60 my other grip. So in crossing that river, it seemed like I got right in the middle of it, and I was going up and down in the water. I knew if I turned loose, I was dead. So when I got across that, I walked around for the next week with water coming out of my nose, my mouth. You know, I don't think I opened my mouth when I was going up and down, but I think the water found ways to get into my body different ways, and it was just like I just got full of that. So those are the three very back-to-back missions I went on. Uh, uh, and then there was a gap between there where I saw that uh, where I admired the genius of the Viet Cong. They had sent us out on another patrol, and this patrol we was on was actually not only our division. It was like the 101, the Screaming Eagles. It was most of all of the big five, and it was the idea basically that the Viet Cong was going to be in this location, and they were stocking up all the uh, food, ammunition to make a large incursion into South Vietnam. We would for to go there and make sure that didn't happen. So when we get to this location, and we all take positions, and we see this nice village. And what dawned in my mind at that point was that when I saw it, it was like looking at a village from God. Looked like uh, I think it's one of those magazines, garden or something like that. It was just a beautiful, picturesque thing to look down on. So we did our due diligence and went into that location and secured it. And as we've done that, all the villagers, women and children, and also men, greeted us. And they said to us basically, yes, the Viet Cong was here, and we were harvesting, and they took this, they took that, they took some of our women, but they left about a day ago, and they're going north. And they probably can't go too far because they took a lot of stuff from us. So after we had gathered information from them, the orders was basically, okay, go into the tree lines, move in the tree lines, and basically try to catch up with them or try to understand what their intent was. And when you moved into this thick wooded tree line, I mean, and if you can just envision the number of men we were, different divisions moving in on a line sweep. We took our time moving in. I was on point at this time. We took our time moving into this tree line. And I think we probably got about almost halfway into that tree line, and I spotted what I thought was a spider web. And then my teammates spotted one tripwire. He said, no, it's a it's a tripwire. So when we examined that, and we called our commanders and they called everyone else, everyone had determined we had walked into an ambush. And there was no way on God's world, based upon the number of men that was in there, we were going to be able to get out of that. The only thing we could do was clear out the area around us, so there would be no trip round that we would hit. Was to dig in a space and coordinate that with everyone else. And at one time, we all pull that trip wire, and just like the whole world came. I mean, what we saw when we first came there was completely destroyed. So to do that kind of ambush, the ingenuity of that was really, to me, it was a genius. I mean, they were designed to kill massive soldiers. And we came back out the same. We went in actually after the um, the bombs that went off. The entire village was empty. So they all were BC. They had disappeared. So it was. But out of that, I'm saying it was to me, it impressed me how smart they were. They could design such a ambush to kill so many people. It was a genius. Uh, and before I got my Brown and Superstore, we had one other mission I put in my book was called Run for Your Life. We had been sent out. It was only 12 of us went sent out on a mission to gather, recon an area, and to find out what the enemy was doing. So we landed basically about an hour from our true insertion point, and under darkness we moved to our correct place. We wanted to sit down and make our observations, and once we got cleared out and set up we set up a triangle ambush, and we was going to wait there to observe the enemy. But Charlie knew we was in the area. They didn't know where we was at. They knew we was in the area, so they were putting on. They had immediately put out a search to try to find us. And all through the night, they had their dogs and looking for it. But we kept very quiet until the early parts of the morning. We realized we had to move. And the first idea was we're going to run. We're not going to fight unless we get cornered. So we crawl on our hands and knees, and we try not to be detected and move out of the area. But we were detected, so we had a firefight. And then from that firefight, there was, I call it a run of our life. We had to really run. And we ran, and doing it, I mean, it was like the VC had the entire area covered with enemies. So like, I mean, bullets were flying, and it was just going like crazy. We ran. I mean, I ran so much I thought I couldn't run anymore, and then it would get worse and worse. Our team leader, he got hit in the back with some of the firefight, but apparently his backpack stopped the bullet. He got knocked down and got back up, and we ran. Then he called in for our pickup spot, and they told us that was a no-go. They changed the pickup spot. So we had to run more and do evasive tactics and fighting. So eventually when we got picked up, we could see the enemy was really frustrated because they didn't catch us. They were shooting at us as we lifted off the ground. But that was really supposed to have been a kill zone for them, but we were able to outrun them and get back safely, I should say, from the kill zone. So those were, I think those are really some of the ones that I think about a lot. I don't know what I should say, unfortunately, but in my stay in Vietnam, I didn't have a break. I was always in some kind of combat fighting zone.
I see behind you, you have several awards that you received, and it
Right.
looks like a Silver Star,
And the
a
Bronx.
Bronze Star,
Right.
I can't tell what the other two medals are. Could you tell me a little bit about those and what happened when you received those?
Well, VC was Silver Star, the Bronze Star. I have the Vietnam Combination Special Weapons Star, Purple Heart. When I received those, I received the Silver Star during my last my last duty. We had actually that was around the middle of last of the year. We had been on an operation mission, and we felt that when we came back on that mission, basically that we were old timers at that time. We felt that we were going to be coming home, but again, the the people in charge had called all the divisions again together for this major operation, and and being an old timer, we knew that we see all the divisions coming together. That meant a big operation, and we didn't know exactly what it was all about. So we we was aboarded a ship, and we went. This was like a hush-hush, I think it was. Anyway, at least at my level, we didn't know where we was going. Got on this ship and went out to the ocean, and when we landed, we had a designated position to go to and set up. And the idea was here is that we had to get in this position before a certain time because it was a huge a position to protect. And once we got set up, we knew that the Viet Cong would probably attack at night. So we, I hope that as time passed, 10, 11, and 12 o'clock, bright moon, no Viet Cong, I was saying maybe we might get by on this. But at 2 o'clock, all hell broke loose. Alpha Company on our right, they got hit first, and right away they got wiped out. We were on the Bravo, we were on the left side. They hit us, and when that kind of fight starts, the whole area is just full of smoke. You really can't see that forward. Only thing you can see is traces hitting the ground in front of you. A man beside you getting his head blowed off. Then you see the napalm coming in, and it's fire. So you don't really see I mean, you just that. And what I can say is that is when your training comes in, because you know that the person that's with you is doing his job and you're doing your job, and it's just all hell breaks out. And then when a person gets hit, you grab that person, and the command is to fall back, and you do all that. You try to save each other, and there's other artillery coming in, and that goes on from the rest of the night into the morning, and it's just really just pure hell. Some people get overrun, and I know one of my teammates, he got overran, and we thought he was dead. And when after all of the fighting had gone down, went back, he had just pulled some of the dead bodies on top of him, and didn't freak out at that point in time. So that's what saved his life. My best friend got hit 3 times. He got killed, but then the guy who came in to support me, we all just fell back. Uh, and we got back to the line where we had artillery at the back of us shooting. So they start shooting directly and straightforward. And we had to hold that position because there was no place else to go. and they called in supporting that artillery, and then they called in the jets again, and they started dropping napalms again. And after all that, they were ordered to cease fire. So the guy who had stepped in to replace my other supportant, I looked around and he was on the ground, boiled up, and I didn't think he was hurt that bad. So I called a medic over and I said to him, basically, uh, I know he's hit, but I can't tell where he's hit. Look at him. So they turned around and they said, he's dead, but set your ass down because your head's busted wide open. If you don't sit down, you're going to lose all your blood. You know, you're bleeding like, you know, your whole body is covered with your blood. So they had to get my head, you know, kind of stopped where it wasn't bleeding. They couldn't, we couldn't evacuate because there were so many people there that was seriously wounded. That they had made an assessment that was worse off than I was because they had stopped me from bleeding. So during that wait time, uh, I guess because I was so hyper up at that time, I wasn't feeling any pain or anything like that. But as I had to wait, and as they moved at other people, I began to feel very cold. And I told the guy, he said, well, that's because you lost a lot of blood. But since the bleeding has stopped, you know, and you're not telling us your symptoms are not life-threatening, you can wait until the last shipment goes out. And just before the last shipment goes going to go out, we got attacked again. So I had to stay there another night. So in doing that night, we fought. We didn't. It was not really a major assault. We had to deal with the snipers basically the night until they eventually brought in other people to relieve us, and I was able to be evacuated out into the medical center and get my head clamped up and stuff like that. That was how I got my silver star. That was before, and that's when we went back to the camp after that, and that's when the young guys who were coming in to replace me and the other older guys had heard about all this, and they was really pumped up, you know. And we were drinking, and like I said, the next day I was going to go out the back and be processed out, and they were going to be on their first mission, and unfortunately, they didn't make it. Uh, Early on in the middle of the around June, July, when I got my Silver Star, we had just really, we were supporting, I think it was the Big Red One or something like that, and they was in a major operation, and they had got pinned down, and we were supporting them, and we got into a major combat, and that's when our first lieutenant, our combat commander got killed. We got into a major fight there, and I tried to save him, but he had been hit 6 times in the chest. So we pulled him back out of the fire zone. We had to fight for a long period of time before we got someone to come in and help us out. So that was a major fight there. So that's when I got my Brown Star. Okay, once I received the head room from the battle and was taken back to the field office, and they head clamped my head back. The only major symptoms I had there was I was dizzy, I had mild headaches, and I had blurred vision. So the initial diagnosis was that would pass, and they gave me a pair of reading glasses. So then I was sent back to my base camp, to start the process of being processed out of Vietnam. When I got back there, that's when they actually in the base camp. They gave me the Silver Star there, and that night, uh, all of the new guys who come in to replace us we all were celebrating and drinking beer and dodging the mortars that came in at nighttime from the Vietcong. The next morning, I was scheduled to be lifted off and go back to Bearcat to be processed out. And that team, their first team, was scheduled to go out of the gate and go out on their first recon mission. And as I was walking to the helicopter to get on the way back to be processed out, I heard the first 5 to 6 seconds go off. I knew at that point in time that that team was dead. The Viet Cong had made sure they didn't make those same mistakes they made when we came in. They killed them right away. So those new guys did not get the opportunity, a chance to learn as we learned. And I think that the Viet Cong realized that they had made mistakes and thinking that we were pushovers when we first got there. So I didn't even look back at that time. I knew the sound, I knew what had happened. And we landed in Bearcat, and I started the process to be processed out. And one of the things that my psychiatrist keep on trying to tell me that I shouldn't feel bad about it is that I don't think that she understands the connections that we soldiers have between each other. Is that at nighttime, a lot of times instead of looking at movies, because you had a lot of movie screens on the base, you could look at movies. You could stand out and look at the firefights. You could stand out, you could tell by the traces, the color blue or red, and you could tell when they were dropping the napalm. And I found myself a lot of times saying, why am I here? Because I realized the importance of every man being with his other buddy, because if one man falls out of the loop, it jeopardized the entire group. So I have a hard time, communicating that to my side. You keep on telling me it was not your fault, but you understand the hell that's going on there in the ground. You understand it's beyond really in my ability to explain it, but I live it. I don't think it's my fault. It's just that the team has a cohesiveness that you work together and you survive. And when one person falls out, look, there's another person that steps in, and I kept on saying, "Why am I here?" But I didn't get past it. I went through that until I was actually on the airplane to come back home from Vietnam, and my thought there was that as soon as the plane takes off and we're airborne, I feel that I was safe enough and the plane would not get shut down. I was going to go to sleep for the first time after a year of tour duty. And I'm still trying to get to that place I can go to sleep, because I never did. It's just that after a year's time, the body is conditioned and you really do not, at least for me, get that full rest sleep. So that's what happened in that case. And when they had told us actually when we processed that the American people really were against the war. So it was best really to don't be surprised if we were mistreated when we get back to the States. So when I got back to the States, I didn't have any incidents really from getting home, but my thought was when I get home, I'll change into civilian clothes, and I really won't wear my military clothing until I report back to my base. So that was my intentions until I put on my uniform with all my mellows one Sunday. And I got so many praises, and everyone was saying how great I looked and this and that. And so I felt great, really. So I decided that I've been going to Fort Campbell for my next assignment. I'd wear my uniform, and I was traveling by bus. So I was walking through the bus station, and I like to say it, attacked by 4 MPs. They couldn't believe I had been to Vietnam. They couldn't believe I had won those medals, and they treated me like I was the godfather. They took me upstairs and they put me in a cage, and I guess their I think it was a major, the colonel, after he had confirmed all that, after 45 minutes, they came down. There was a great apology and everything else. And at that point in time, I had a different understanding or liking of the military. Before that, I think I was thinking about making it a career, but when that went down, that whole process just vanished from my mind. So I spent the rest of my tour just waiting just to get out of the military. I was lucky in the sense that at Fort Campbell, there's a lot of people who were veterans like me who had been to war, who had probably had similar experiences. And there was one guy who we had the same thought process. And that was, as soon as we get our discharge paper, take our duffel bag, tie it behind our car, and drag it out of the post. And he was discharged, I think about a week or 3 weeks before me, and he did it, and he got arrested, I think. He saved me. Well, that was my same thought. You can't destroy government property. So I kept my stuff here at home, but there were a lot of, I think, veterans who had a nasty taste for the military. One of the reasons why I think is because in Fort Campbell, they had a lot of new second lieutenants. And we old timers sometimes would not right away salute them, and they wanted to chew us out. That's a lot of crap. We didn't want to go through all that. So when I got discharged, I didn't want to see a psychiatrist or see any doctors in terms of any kind of treatment. So I got a job. I got a job as an accounting clerk at a bank. And it was a good job, but I noticed that they were hiring more people who were coming in and getting advancements to other positions that I was not entitled to because I didn't have no college training. So I went to Monroe Business School, which was a 2-year college, and during my second year there, they said, you shouldn't really be here because you're wasting your time. You're very smart, you should go to an actual university. We can transfer these credits over there. So I decided to apply for Fordham University. And I said to myself, I'll go there and I'll only take 6 credits. If I'd like it, I'll stay. If I don't, I'll just stop out and just forget about the promotion at the bank. And I had a difficult time at Fordham. When I was accepted into Fordham, my first night in my math class, the teacher was the person who had written the book that he was going to teach us from it. He was, and very odd, he was a genius. He said to the class, he said, I only give 1 test, maybe 2 if you need it. But if you get an A on the first test, that's all you need. The second test is optional. And he gives an outline of what we had to do during the semester. And then he said, I'm going to give you a test right now, only to get a feel for what how everyone stands so I know how to teach the class. And he gave that test, and the next Monday, there was about 8 of us he called. He put names in the board. He said, I want to see you people after the class. And he said to me, he said, Leon, I'll just tell you right now, you have to just drop out. Because it's bad. It's worse staying here and getting an F. You cannot take this class. You're not going to pass it. So I had to beg him to let me stay in the class because when I was going to high school for Black people at that time, they didn't teach you any kind of algebra or statistics. They only gave you the basic accounting, the basic math, bookkeeping, and that was it. So I said to him, I never had that, but you know, I'm a fast learner. At that time, I called my aunt who died. I called her mother. I said, she really taught me a lot of stuff, and I can really grasp. He said, well, I don't care what she taught you. He said, you don't know. It's like we trying to teach you Russian. Drop out. So I said, well, at least give me a chance. So he said, okay, let's make an agreement. I will give you until the first exam test. If you promise me once you fail it, you will quit. I said, okay. And during that time, I listened to what he had to teach, and I listened to what I had to learn, and I did some educating myself. So on the first exam, I got 100. He said, you can do it. And he really encouraged me. So that's how I got started. I almost got kicked out, and he was a supporter for me. So I went on, I got my undergraduate from Fordham in Beirut. And by that time, I had now been promoted to controller in accounting. So then I went on to get my master's degree. I mean, I got my BS degree at Fordham, and I got my master's in finance at the college. And I was able to advance along the way. And that right after I got my master's in 1985, that's when my eyesight got really bad, and I was losing a lot of sight. And I really, at that point in time, was facing a lot of difficulties with my health because of all of the aging on and stuff like that. I had developed prostate cancer and all that other stuff. But I had a good job, and I had good insurance. And at that time, the VA was not really recognizing aging on as something that was, you know, caused sickness. So they were scheduling examination once a year. So I went to my doctor. He said to me, you have the prostate cancer, and it just started. It's like he said, it's like a round little dot circle. That means it's just beginning. If we treat you now, we can get it all out of your system and clean it up. I said, well, let me just talk to the VA again and make sure they understand and see when the next time they're going to be, you know, given a test to examine this. So the VA told me they had to wait another year. So I told him, I said, well, can we wait another year? He said, no. He says, I got tens and 20 people who've done that. When they go to treatment after that, it's just too late. So I had seed implants, got it all cured. So a lot of the diseases that I caught in Vietnam, I got treated outside of the VA hospital because I had good insurance. I've been given credit for that now because I mean, the VA has recognized all this. So I'm 100% service connected, but I was lucky enough to have the insurance to do it outside of the VA hospital. And I caught all of my Agent Orange stuff like that early in the stages, and I kind of got it under control. But the eyes since 1979 has been a major issue, and I first lost the left eye. I still had some sight in the right eye, but I had about 15 surgeries on both eyes. And
Did the issues with the eyes start with a head injury that you received in Vietnam?
Yeah, and actually, they just actually, a matter of fact, they called me today and told me that they finally agreed that that was the problem, because that was one of the claims that they kept on not approving. They did deny. They kept on asking and pushing back. You know, and at one point in time, uh, doing that operation when I had the operation for the Silver Star, that was I learned later on was like a top secret mission, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And those files got destroyed. And there was, and they told me one time, said, this warehouse got burned down. I'm not, no. What are you telling me? I don't know what that, they say the records in that warehouse. I said, well, I can't help that. That does not mean it didn't happen. So based upon all of that, you know, and I got a call today, actually, it's funny, saying to me, we have approved all of that. We know it is true. So you're gonna be suing all this ward and stuff like that. But that's where it came from. And then it was actually the head injury started the whole process. And one of the things they were saying that really reason why they didn't want to, because when they had the first surgery on my head injury, they told me that because I was at a young age, I had developed all these scar tissues and cataracts in both eyes, especially the left eye, that had to do immediate surgery on the eye. But because this tissue was so strong, they won't have to elevate the pressure very high, but it would come down after the operation. But the operation was really bad. During the operation, they destroyed the foundation on the left eye, you know, a lot of stuff. And so they said to me, basically, not to me directly, they were saying because I'm Black, a lot of these kind of injuries and stuff, Blacks inherited. They didn't want to initially say it was part of the war. They were saying maybe I inherited.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been the battle for a long time. And now, I mean, I've been going to all these different doctors. I mean, at least 40 doctors send me here. And now they come down to the point of saying, yeah, you're right, you know. But that's where it came from, the war. Hmm.
Now, you wrote a book about your life, haven't you?
Yeah, I wrote a book about it. I tried to cover it more in detail in the book about the my growing up in the South and in the military and experience I got and returning from home and stuff like that. Yes.
And what's the name of the book?
A life struggle of a Vietnam veteran.
Wow. So are you retired now or are you still working?
Yeah, I retired. I can't I can't sit still. I had to stop working in 2014 because at that time my eyesight got so bad. I was senior vice president of a nonprofit organization, and the numbers stuff with a certain point was really blurred out on me, and I was not at that time. Also, I was having at that time. I was really having a lot of flashback. I mean, I really was angry and stuff like that, and seeing 3 or 4 psychiatrists, and I couldn't maintain my concentration a lot, and so I had to make a decision to face eventually getting fired or taking an early retirement. So I retired at that time. So what I did after that is that when I I guess you would say accepted the fact that I was going to lose sight of one eye, maybe 2 eyes, I started looking out, seeking help from the VA in terms of benefits and support and stuff like that. And doing that, I found that there's a lot of veterans, even today, that's one of my missions. It's a lot of veterans who are not told about the benefits that they're entitled to in the process they got to go through. And that you got to be persistent in trying to get those benefits. So, and what gave me encouraged to that can't keep on pushing is that I'd be at a low point and I was saying to myself, I just forget about it. And I'd bump into someone who would say, well, I went through this, just hang in there, don't give up. And I started the process over again, uh, and until I got the outcome today, which is favorable. So that was been my mission, is basically is that I found this organization called the Blind Veteran Association, which deals with low vision, not low vision. We're trying to get low vision included into our organization, but actually it's legally blind and blind veterans. And their mission is actually to help them with their claims, their benefits, and get and support both their families and the veteran themselves. So I started that chapter in my VA hospital. I formed a group, support group. I became the president of that for 2 years, and then I was nominated by the membership of the Eastern Board to become the director. And now I've been appointed by the president of the organization, national organization, to be the financial chair and the ambassador for the organization. So I keep active, and I find it's rewarding because I'm now telling veterans my experiences and telling veterans don't give up, and tell them what they got to do to get the benefits that they need. And they got to be their own advocacy and fighting for these things. And the VA just don't give you anything. You got to fight for it. So that's what I'm doing now. I keep busy doing this stuff.
Very good. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's about it. I try to be involved in the community. That's it. I hope that I can maintain I have some pretty good eyesight at times. Like a day is a pretty bad day, because when it's cloudy or really dark, my vision kind of cuts down a lot. But when it's sunny, I have some pretty good vision, and I can get out and do things. I'm very self-independent, and I try to maintain that way.
Well, very good. Well, thank you for sharing your story, and welcome home, brother.